Hello, researchers. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person today, but even though I'm not physically in school, we can still continue the research we began last week. If you remember, we all read the book Why by Lila Prapp, which contained many questions about animals. Then, you wrote your own question about an animal that you want to be answered. Great researchers are able to answer their own questions. So, over the next few weeks, I am going to be teaching you the skills you need to find answers to your own questions. Earlier this year, we learned about fiction versus nonfiction books. Remember, nonfiction books are real and full of facts. Reading nonfiction books can help you learn information, and if you choose the right book, it will likely have the answer to your question. We are going to revisit nonfiction books today and take a closer look. Most times, a nonfiction book has something called a table of contents. It is found in the beginning of the book, right before the first page. A table of contents is a list of chapters and the pages you can find each chapter on. Let's take a look at the book Zebras on Epic. Right at the beginning of the book is the table of contents. Sometimes it is shortened to just the word contents, like it is in this book. As you can see, this table of contents lists all of the chapters in the book and which pages each chapter begins on. For example, the chapter titled, What Are Zebras? Can be found on page 4. Let's go to page 4 and make sure we can find What Are Zebras? Aha! We did indeed. So this chapter is going to be all about what zebras are. Let's read.
What are zebras? Zebras are animals with black and white stripes. They are related to horses. Every zebra has a different pattern of stripes.
What Are Zebras ended on page 7. So a new chapter must be starting on page 8. Let's take a look. Now that I am on page 8, I can tell a new chapter has begun because there is a chapter title at the top of the page. This chapter is called What Zebras Eat. If we go back to the table of contents, we should see What Zebras Eat as the second chapter, and page 8 should be next to the chapter because the chapter starts on page 8. Let's check. Look at that! What Zebras Eat is on page 8. The table of contents is useful because you can preview everything that's in the book just by looking at this one handy page. If we continue to look at the table of contents in this book, we see we are also going to learn about families and herds and grooming and teeth. It also shows us there is a glossary on page 22. A glossary is a list of scientific terms or tricky words found in the book with their definitions. It's like a mini dictionary. We are going to learn more about glossaries another time. So let's go back to the table of contents. Let's say your question is, what do zebras eat? You do not have to read this whole book to find the answer to your question. You can go right to the chapter, What Zebras Eat, found on page 8, and read those pages to get information about what zebras eat. Let's try it.
What zebras eat? Zebras live and graze on savannas. They eat grass, twigs, and bark.
Wow, so now I know that zebras eat grass, twigs, and bark, and I don't have to look any further to find the answer to my question. That is why it is so important to preview the table of contents before you read the book, to make sure the information in the book is what you are looking for. In just a bit, you are going to practice using a table of contents on your own. But first, let's practice together. The directions say, Use the information below to answer the questions. As you can see, we have a sample table of contents from the book Slippery Seals by Sam Newton. Number 1 asks, on what page would you look to find out about what seals eat? So first, we have to find the chapter related to what seals eat, and then we have to find what page that chapter begins on. Let's take a look at the chapters. There is seal bodies, hungry seals, seal habitats, seal pups, and the glossary. What chapter do you think has information about what seals eat? If you said hungry seals, you were right. Now let's look at what page that begins on. If I look across from hungry seals, I can see the page 5, which means hungry seals begins on page 5. Number 2 asks, what information would you find if you looked on page 7? So let's see what chapter we would find on page 7. Here's page 7, and we would find the chapter Seal Habitats. That means we are going to learn about where seals live in this chapter. All right. Question number 3 is, who is the author of this book? Well, here is the title of the book, and right under that it says by, and then a person's name. So I know that person's name is the person who wrote the book, or the author. So I am going to write his name on the line, Sam Newton. Number 4 asks, what page would you find the glossary on? If I look at the glossary in the table of contents, I can see that it starts on page 12. And lastly, what is the glossary used for? Remember I mentioned that the glossary is used to define scientific or tricky words in the book? Now it's your turn to try. Your teacher is going to pass out a similar worksheet. This worksheet has a sample table of contents for the book Hurricanes by Kim Brown. Answer the questions independently the best you can. Question number 5 asks